Hello, everybody. Thank you for checking in with Searching for Scary. I appreciate the support, guys. Sorry I had not posted a video last week. Got a little busy, got a little held up. And honestly, there really has not been a lot of great content lately as far as like movies and books and things like that. Um, if you watch this channel at all, you know I do primarily read comic books, although I do read mangas and novels and watch obviously lots of horror movies. It's just comics are the easiest to consume. You know, I can sit down and get through one in like 15 minutes, whereas a novel you're going to be dedicating some time, and a lot of times, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time to get through a book, only because, you know, I have other stuff going on. But that being said, for this particular review, I'm actually going to end up doing just 3 movies. So no comics this time, no novels this time, just strictly 3 movies. And they're things that are relatively recent, at least 2 of them. And I'm going to try to kind of touch on something that may be suitable for everybody out there, every kind of horror fan. You know, that not every horror fan is the same. We don't all like gratuitous violence. You know, we don't all like, you know, the possibility of being eaten by somebody. There's different things that scare everybody. And you know, and I think I brought this up on other videos, but I gotta say, I think horror is probably one of the few genres that really shows a distinction between men and women. And not to say that it's good or bad, it's just what I take as a fact, because the movies and the plot lines and just the portrayal of people is completely different depending on whose point of view you're getting. And I think that, you know, that may be true in other genres, and there may be other you know, mediums where you can see a pretty clear distinction. But in horror, it's just the way that typically the protagonist goes about it, and sometimes even if they are the antagonist in the movie, it completely differs between, you know, it being a man or a woman. And even like when you're talking about like true crime, you know, different like profilers and things like that, that's the first thing they look at. You know, is this going to be a man or a woman we're looking for? And watching horror or reading horror really brings that to the forefront. And after you've been doing it for a while, you can really tell, you know, kind of where somebody's mind is at, and where the person that created this content was maybe getting this from, or the lens they were looking through to create it. Anyways, all of that big rant just to say we got 3 movies I'm reviewing. So let's go ahead and get into it. First one is Fear Street, and this is a new, or I say newer, movie on Netflix. It's actually a trilogy. So as of right now, there's only 2 movies out. The third and last one comes out this coming Friday, which would be the 16th. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is a movie that I watched. I watched the second one, and it really wasn't because I was a huge fan. It was not because I thought it was so good that I needed to go out and watch the second one. It was kind of what I was alluding to earlier. It was a slow week for horror stuff. So it's good. It's good if you're into slashers. It's very formulaic. It's very predictable for the most part. It does have some scenes in it. There's like 1 or 2 times where they got me, and I was like legitimately surprised in the direction that they went. I don't want to say it's necessarily like overly scary, but there is enough horror elements in it for horror fans to get into, and there are definitely some scarier scenes in it. There, I think the plot line and the story, the book that it's based off of, which is an R.L. Stine book, is pretty good. It's just maybe the execution that maybe suffered a little bit. Just to give you a general understanding of it, there is a town that kind of borders with another town. One of them is called Shadyville, the other one is called Sunnyville. You know, pretty generic, but essentially the Shadyvillers are like the lower income side of it, and they are always getting like looked down upon by the Sunnyviller or Sunnysiders or whatever their name is. And so that's kind of like an overarching theme. But way back in the history of these towns, there was a witch that was from Shadyside, and she is executed, and she curses the town. And if you disturb her resting place, she curses you, and the curses essentially she's going to hunt you down and keep hunting you down until you die. And so in the first one, we see that and I'm going to tell you right now, this isn't necessarily a spoiler. I mean, I guess it is, but it's not going to ruin the movie for you. In the first one, we find out that you have to die in order for her to stop coming after you, but there is a survivor that he kind of like, along the lines of what you're probably thinking already, died, but it was like a very temporary death, and then they came right back, and everything was good. But leading up to that, you find out that the witch has done this several times. She does it every couple of years whenever her body is disturbed, and she's possessed several people to go out and do her bidding for her. And so now when you disturb her resting place, she sends these people from the past at you. So you're not just being hunted down by the witch, you're being hunted down by several different entities that are trying to kill you in different forms and fashions, and they each have their own backstory that gets delved into, and they're all serial killers. They're all people that got possessed and went crazy and killed multiple people in pretty gruesome fashions usually. And so my overall recommendation for this is it's good, it's very watchable, but if you're a horror, quote unquote veteran, and you're into more like psychological horror, or something that's just a little bit deeper than like your generic slasher film, this is probably one of those things you can just passively watch. Just put it on and play with your phone and do whatever you want, and it's okay. It's not, even if you like really intently watch it, you're not gonna get like scared. It's not gonna keep you awake at night. Again, assuming that you are pretty heavy into horror genre. That all being said, though, I really do think this is a great way to introduce people to horror. I have a teenager, and she has gotten into horror. She's really gotten into horror the last couple of years, and she's loved it, and she listens to a lot of like scary stories and stuff like that. And she even looks through like some horror comic books with me, but she hasn't really gotten to experience a lot of horror movies, and that's by choice. I totally would let her, but she's decided I don't really want to just yet. I want more of like the comic book and manga kind of horror stuff, which is totally cool. That being said, though, the day that she does start to really look into movies, this is one of the movies I'd probably start her with, because it is kind of like an introduction of like, this is the formulas that most horror movies follow. This is a very generic, like haunting kind of experience, and so it's something good for people getting into the horror field, and it's something that you can really watch and take away like, okay, this is how most horror films are going to go. So anyways, take that for what it is. Next is The Wailing, and The Wailing, and I apologize, I cut off the title here, but it is called The Wailing. Yep, 1 second. There we go, got it fixed. Okay, so this is a harder movie to kind of summarize here, and it is a longer movie, so I will tell you right now, this is not a movie to put on and like try to watch if you're tired or it's too late at night, because it is about a 3-hour long movie. So it's not one of those things you're going to be able to wrap up like in an hour and a half. I myself ended up having to kind of watch this movie in like pieces, and I watched like 45 minutes to an hour a night until I wrapped it up. That all being said, though, it honestly could have made this movie into like a mini series, and I think that would have maybe even been a little bit better than the whole movie, only because in the whole movie there's a lot of stuff where you're having to kind of recall and remember things that happened like way earlier in the movie, which is totally fine, and I liked it, and it works as a movie, don't get me wrong. I just think if they had chopped this into maybe like 30-minute or even like an hour-long segments, it would have been a little bit better, especially because you could have added like a recap at the beginning or the end or something like that, and given people kind of like reminders like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. The movie as it is, though, it focuses on a police officer, and he's a South Korea police officer. He has a family, and there are these murders happening in his town, and he's trying to track down the killer and obviously arrest him and whatnot. But these killings are all really weird, and there's just like this overarching sense or theme that it's not human. It's not like natural deaths. And one of those things, if you're looking at the image, it kind of leads you to think like, okay, this isn't just a regular killing, is because all of these people, when they're found, the killer that is, look to be like zombified, and they're not eating people, so they're not zombies, but they look like they're like not conscious maybe, or they've already been dead. And usually they do find them dead, but they look like they've been dead for a little while, and it's just a weird, situation when the police officers aren't really sure what's going on. And for the most part, the people that are dying or killing people and then dying don't really have a good motive to do it. At least nothing that's talked about in the movie. It's usually just like somebody goes crazy and kills their family. And so that's how the movie starts. It does start delving into like other aspects of like possession and ghosts and demons, and then it does get back into zombies. And so there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I can promise you, if you like horror movies, if you like any of those things I just said, there's going to be a piece of this movie at least that is for you. Once we get past that initial like entry of like, okay, this is what's going on, this is the case he's working as a police officer, then it starts focusing more on him and his family. So you find out he has a daughter, and the daughter has become possessed or like is like influenced with this evil entity that's in the town. And so now he's trying to kind of rid her of the entity, and he's got to find out, okay, what happened here and who is taking like control of my daughter. And he's got to all do this, of course, within X amount of time, because other people are experiencing this, and they've all died, and they've all killed their family before dying. So now he's really got to start kind of, getting on it, and it's more personal to him. And then from there is a handful of suspects that he gets into. And so this is where it gets a little trippy and a little tricky. So each suspect has something off with them, and each one has some sort of background that's like not necessarily nefarious, but they're pretty much all supernatural. Like one of them, you don't know really where they come from. The other one is definitely practicing some sort of black magic, like in their home. You don't know, who they are, how they're related to anybody else in this movie. They just kind of come in and out of the movie like sporadically, and then you are kind of, it's just kind of implied like, hey, this person is up to something. They're not just a regular townsperson. It's very odd, and I apologize if I'm not like doing a great job of explaining this. Like I said, there's a lot going on in this movie. What I will say is, if you have the time, and if you don't mind reading subtitles, because again, it is in Korean, it's definitely worth the watch. And this is one of those movies that it's hard to watch it a second time because it is so long. But if you can find the time to do it, or like I said, if you need to maybe break it up into like segments, I would say watch it 2 times if possible, because the first time you're watching it, at least for myself, I was just so astounded with like what's going on. I have no idea who is who, other than like the 3 or 4 main characters, and why this person is doing this, and like who is this, and who are we talking about. And at the end, when they wrap it up, and I will tell you, the end is amazing. It's really, really good. I don't want to call this a slow burn, because you're not just waiting for those last couple minutes. Like, the entire movie is really good, but the ending really drives home what they're getting at, and it is just, it's really, really good. I don't even want to call it a twist, because it's not something that comes out of left field. Like, it's something you were somewhat at least, expecting, or at least they kind of alluded to it. So it's really, really good, and it makes the whole movie not only worth the kind of wait to get to the end, but also really wraps it up neatly and nicely, and it makes sense. So when you see the ending, you'll want to go back and watch it again to kind of better understand what everybody was doing. And like I said, it can be kind of hard because it's such a long movie, but this is one of those movies I would actually say is worth the time to go back and do it. And it's a really great film. So if you're a horror buff, if you just love horror films, if any of those things I said even interest you in the slightest, give it a watch. It is free. This is on Shudder. Shudder, obviously, it's not free, but this movie, once you subscribe to Shudder, will be on there. And lastly, it's another pick from Shudder, and this is Anything for Jackson. Anything for Jackson is more of a stereotypical like Western film, and a lot more straightforward, a lot more generic, I guess. It is really good. It is really good. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad movie. It's actually plays off of a lot of like the tropes and things that we typically see. It just does it better, and it gives you a little bit more background, and it gives you kind of a unique reason as to why any of this is going on. So usually there's like a haunted house, or some sort of witchcraft in the bloodline, or some generic reason as to why people are being haunted or killed or whatever. This particular film is different in the fact that you are not watching these people that moved into somewhere or went somewhere they weren't supposed to. It's people that are in their own house. It is a man and a woman, older couple, and the plot line for this is they have just lost their daughter and their grandchild. I believe it was due to car accident, but don't quote me on that. The main takeaway is that the child has passed away, and they're willing to do anything to get him back. And his name is Jackson, so literally anything for Jackson. The way that they go about this, though, is that they join a cult or a group that does demonic studies and looks into like spell binding and black magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. And so they join this group specifically to look for a way to bring their grandchild back. And they find one that is going to require other people be in part or take part in this ritual. And aside from that, it's also going to kind of put them in this very precarious position where they are inviting other entities into their home. So they're like literally asking these things to come into their home and bring their grandchild back. So as you can imagine, stuff goes wrong. They don't do stuff right. All sorts of crazy appearances come out. There's monsters all over the place, and it's just like I said, it's pretty generic in the fact that okay, it's monsters, it's people that mess with witchcraft, and some bad stuff happens. There's a ton of movies out there like that, a ton of books and comics and everything. This is just a unique way to go about it. It's a very different feel when you watch the movie, because there's little aspects that are kind of taken from other movies and books, and you'll kind of get the hints as to where like the inspiration came for certain things. But they take it a step further. The pacing is done really well. It's very good. It's very quick. And you never feel like, okay, I'm just sitting here watching some people talk, like what's going on, let me fast forward. This is one of those movies you can turn on like at 9, 10 o'clock at night, assuming you're not like dead tired, and just kind of watch it and not feel like you're going to have to stay up till 1 in the morning, and like you're not going to fall asleep during it. It's really well done, really well executed. The horror scenes are amazing. Again, this is not one of those movies that I think you're going to like not be able to sleep at night, but if you're a horror fan, you're going to really appreciate it and probably recommend it to other people. And this is, again, not really for like younger kids, but if you know, again, someone who's like getting into horror, this is probably a good recommendation for them, because it's a little bit of a unique film, but still close enough to home to where it's not like a psychedelic watch and they're like, what the hell did you recommend to me? So anyways, those are the 3 recommendations, guys. If I had to pick one, I would definitely pick The Wailing, but again, it is the longest film, and it is in subtitles, so kind of take your pick with these. Hopefully you will watch one of these. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like I said, the last 2, as far as The Wailing and Anything for Jackson, are on Shudder. They're both free with your subscription to Shudder. And Fear Street is on Netflix, and the 3rd installation of that movie will be coming out this coming Friday, which is July 16th. Everybody, have a great time, have a great weekend. Thank you again for watching, subscribing, liking, commenting, anything else you might do on here. Appreciate all your support and all the time you spend watching these. Have a great day.